Look at the situation at independence. When the British leave, what are they leaving behind? How many princely states? I mean, you are at a situation where you could balkanize the country into dozens of little provinces. So it was a huge effort to bring the princely states in, contain the centrifugal forces that existed, people who were kind of dispersing. So you needed a strong center at that time. But a strong center did not mean a dominating center. Under Nehru, I mean, if you look at his planning, the whole planning, why was the Planning Commission set up? What was one of the main objectives of the Planning Commission and the Finance Commission? Was to ensure that planning went into the backward states. Investments happened so that you brought the backward states up. So the center was to play not the role of dominating, but the role of integrating, bringing in the various parts which were, as I said, the nation was still in the making. I mean, and it is at birth. If at birth itself you gave the opportunity for everybody to break out, that would be the end of the matter. But you grew over time. I mean, even, for example, when this imposition of Hindi, pressure came and Tamil Nadu said, bye-bye, we are out of the country. So then concessions were given, new issues, new ways of handling the language issue were brought up. After all, the three-language formula did come up. Acceptance of diversity, as you can see over time in India, the multiplication of the number of states, the splitting up of states did occur, but it had to be done in an organized manner. It had to be done in a phased manner. That is why I think in the beginning the makers of the Constitution were very wary. They were very wise people in this. You need to read Granville Austin. Have you read Granville Austin? The Making of the Indian Constitution. Easily the best work. He, unlike what every popular journalist says, Ambedkar wrote the Constitution. Ambedkar did not write the Constitution. He was the chief of the drafting committee brought in at the end under Gandhiji's pressure. He was not even necessary for the Constitution. But Gandhiji wanted that the new nation must have people from every aspect, even those who disagreed with me. After all, Gandhiji sat on a life fast unto death against Ambedkar. But he said he must be at the top of the thing. But as Granville Austin shows, that the Constitution emerges from much earlier, from Tilak in the 1890s, but certainly in 1931. If you read the Karachi Resolution of 1931, you will find that almost all the basic elements of the Objectives Resolution and the basic elements of the Constitution are already there. With all the disparities, Ambedkar was a very wise man, undoubtedly, and he agreed with this of giving a structure which kept the federal, that's why it's called India a union of states. It kept the federal structure and yet gave the center enough power so that the country did not dissipate. What we are witnessing today, and you are correctly saying, is the misuse of the center. What will save our democracy is the existence of the federal part of the structure. For example, when the center now tries to dominate, what are you witnessing? The resistance is coming from the states. It's not going to be easy. So it is a balance. It must be a balance. University, you asked one question. You are right. I already said the attack on universities. But I want to give you an example. When the attack on JNU was occurring, and the issue they said was that there are some people who questioned the hanging of Afzal Guru. That was the reason given one of the reasons given for saying that JNU is full of terrorists, they support terrorism, etc., etc. And we all opposed it at that time. Every student has a right to say what they want to say. You may not agree or not agree. So then the Princeton University, which as you know is one of the world's top universities, the president of the Princeton University was visiting New Delhi. So a group of people went to him, the right-wing people, and kind of challenged him. They said, sir, if in your university somebody said that the killing of Osama bin Laden was a murder, and it should not have happened, that it was a murder by the state, etc., etc., would you allow that? he said, I will not agree with that person. I will try my best to persuade that person that you are wrong. But he said, I run a university, not a jail. If in a university, somebody is not able to say the opposite of what I believe, what is it a university meant for? So he got a sharp answer from that. University is precisely meant, that is why I quoted Nehru, adventure of ideas. If dissidence does not come from a university, where will it come from, you tell me? Who will do the questioning, isn't it? But they don't want questioning. And if you don't want questioning, what you have to kill is the university. Remember, the first thing that Hitler did was destroy Frankfurt University. Frankfurt University in Germany was the top university at that time. Destroyed it exactly we are following the same route. Attack the student, attack the teachers. Peter Drucker, have you heard of him? Peter Drucker is a management guru, one of the greatest management guys in the world. He's died recently, but everybody who's done management knows Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker was a young teacher there at that time in Frankfurt and had to run away and ended up in the United States. And he has written about what was done to Frankfurt. I'm telling you the story on the basis of what Peter Drucker has written. So, attack on universities, attack on the intelligentsia are part of a fascist paradigm and must be resisted.
The first constitutional amendment was passed. And the very first constitutional amendment said that it was creating a ninth schedule whereby the judicial review will not be applicable. And during this session, you said that independent judiciary was a main feature of Nehruvian era. So if we are looking in that regard, the very first constitutional amendment put forward by the Nehruvian policy was a curtailment of this judicial review. And the second doubt I have, Gandhi always regarded Nehru as his political successor. He even said that even when I die, he will speak my language. Did Nehru consider Gandhi as his political guru is my question. Because during the independence struggle, when Gandhi was in Navokali at the Calcutta, Nehru was concentrated on this transfer of power in Delhi. So did Nehru correctly fill onto the spot of Gandhi's political successor? That's my question.
Gandhiji argued that freedom of the press is inviolable. It's something that you cannot touch at all. He compared it with he called it the water of life. And he said, have you ever heard of water being diluted? Milk can be diluted, but water cannot be diluted. So freedom of the press is, he said, is like water. Cannot be diluted. Absolute freedom. But he made one exception. He said, if hate is being taught in schools, if hate is being spread through the media, I would be the first person to ban it. All right? So there is complexity there. Similarly, the First Amendment, right, freedom of speech, etc., everything is okay. Reality is never just black and white. It's the shade of grey we have to look at. So you cannot have a system where everything is allowed. You see, if you were to deny, if the RSS, for example, was to now demand freedom of speech, and on that basis, which is what they're doing, and on that basis, in Parliament, Ramesh Biduri's statements you have heard, what he has called Muslims, what kind of abuse. And if you say it is okay, freedom of speech, that Parliament, you can say anything. Can you do that? You can't. So there has to be limits. So what do we have to, if you are evaluating Nehru, evaluate that does he use that amendment to prevent the opposition? Or do you see in Nehru's time, every kind of opposition survive? He didn't have to let the RSS people out, having put them in jail. They are no fighters. Even during the emergency, once they were put in jail, they started writing letters to Indira Gandhi, saying that, your son Sanjay Gandhi is a great hero. RSS. Right? So they are no fighters. They could be put down. But he did not believe in putting down people like that. He believed in putting down the other side through argument. Right? That was the overall perspective. But that amendment was required to legally contain at times things that were done which were threatening the state itself. As I told you, in 1948, when he writes to the chief ministers, he says a coup is being planned. If a coup is being planned, where on the basis of hate, you want to change the idea of India, you want to create India into Hindu Rashtra, then it has to be stopped legally. And I would see Nehru's interventions in creating laws of that kind. After all, why did he make the amendment, the second amendment perhaps, for the land reforms? Because lakhs of cases in Bihar were filed, lakhs, by the landlords, against the land reforms. And they said that, the land doesn't belong to me. They named pieces of their land because it was being divided according, you could keep only, let's say, 15 acres, and somebody owns 2,000 acres. So they put it in the names of their cats, their dogs, their servants, and everything, and filed cases. So this had to be stopped. There had to be a judicial way of stopping it. So he made an amendment where you could not question. So you can, if you are very technical, you can say this is not correct. But on the other hand, if the judicial process itself is being used to undermine the judiciary, if the democratic civil liberty process is being used to undermine civil liberty itself, if the press is being used to kill the press, then you have to use the law. You should use the law. That's how I would look at it. I've been reading Nehru recently, and fortunately, his selected works are now all there. 100 odd volumes nearly. I edited a few of them, but right till his death, all the volumes are published. Look at his speeches after independence. Look at his first speech in the American Parliament. It was looked up because Modi made a very big thing of his speech to the US Parliament. There is never a speech that he gives anywhere where he doesn't describe himself, where he doesn't start with Gandhi and his contribution in making of the new world. Undoubtedly, there is not an iota of doubt in my mind that Gandhi was right in saying that after he's gone, he will speak his language. He learned enormously from Gandhi. Gandhiji's experiment in transformation was described by no less than Gramsci. You all know of Antonio Gramsci, the great Marxist, as the only example in history where the alternate model of transformation, that is, one is capture of power directly, and the other is, as he said, war of positions, war of maneuver versus war of positions. One was capturing the Bastille, the Russian Revolution, etc., French Revolution. The other, he said, in a democratic, semi-democratic situation, it's a war of positions. That is, you have to wear down various segments of society, transform them. Education, press, media, police, judiciary, you have to transform this thing. That Gandhi's was the only example historically where it was practiced. And Nehru understood that. Nehru started as what one has called, not I have called, Professor Bipendra called, from a Stalin Marxist position. Marxism is also of all kinds, as you know. Most of the Marxists in the world today do not accept Stalin, right? Stalin Marxism is the kind of Marxism is now more or less given up everywhere. Eurocommunism was the first contest to Stalinism that occurred in the world, right? In Germany and Italy leading the Eurocommunist movement. But Nehru anticipated that by about 40 years. He gave up Stalin Marxism at the same time as Gramsci in the 1930s. His 1936 speech as president of the Indian National Congress, you can describe virtually as a Marxist speech, Stalin Marxist speech. By 38, 39, he's saying there is no socialism without democracy. Socialism, he says, must be the socialism of 90%. He is giving up the notion of the dictatorship of the proletariat. He's saying socialism, and this is important words, prophetic words. Socialism died in Soviet Union on the issue of democracy. So he said there is no socialism without democracy. You must carry the overwhelming numbers of people with you. You have to discover ways of socialism which carries the other side also. It is not going to be like in Russia, 4% working class doing a revolution and capturing power. Result, civil war. Because people had not been transformed. Gandhian model was not that. Gandhian model was you have to carry everybody along. Ours was the only revolution in the world, only, which was not followed by civil war. Why? Because it was a mass movement, you dealt with opposition right through, you argued within. The communists were part of the Congress, the socialists were the part of the Congress, they debated 30s and 40s is just debates within. And they arrive at a consensus, what we call the Nehruvian consensus. Everybody was agreed. From Birla to the communists were agreed on what Nehru was trying to do in the 50s and 60s and 50s and 60s. So that is the Gandhian path. So I think short answer to your question is that Nehru undoubtedly was following Gandhi, and Gandhi was absolutely correct in anticipating that.